joining us today. Really appreciate you being here.
Good. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to speak to you.
Yeah. Today I thought we could take a little time and, I've got a few questions that I prepared. Love to hear, your answers and how they relate to the Utah program. And yeah, just a time to talk about the program and what's going on. So I guess maybe we'll jump right off and I'll ask, tell me a little bit about how the program got started. What's kind of the roots and history of it?
I think there's a couple important things to understand about how the Utah program came to be. It's in when college esports started forming, it was frequently kind of smaller campuses and smaller institutions that were able to elevate esports because of a institutional understanding this appeals to the kind of students they want to have in their campus, and it was a very effective kind of recruitment and retention kind of tool for those schools. Utah, we never really viewed it as that, and never viewed it as something that we wanted to incentivize students to come on campus for, as much as this was a cultural artifact of the students we already had in our campus, and we wanted to get them to identify with the school and the brand by kind of embracing it as what we had here. And kind of two sides of it, of Utah, well before college esports and well before this thing started to take off, there was always a huge gaming presence at the University of Utah through the academic program that exists at Utah, the Entertainment Arts Engineering program, which is now in its 12th year as a game studies and game development program to kind of teach students engineering, art, technical art, production, an interdisciplinary program, try to get students jobs in the gaming industry as developers. And that program took off and was one of the most noted programs in the country, kind of pursuing that aspect of game studies, and was the number one ranked program in the country 3 out of the last 7 years by the Princeton Review, and has been top 10 ranked country for 10 years straight. And so gaming and investment in games and is a cultural artifact of the University of Utah, even before college esports shows up. And part of that, and kind of a comment of that, is at Utah, we also had one of the biggest student clubs in the country, right, of Crimson Gaming, and a club of 600 students that was filling whole entire buildings with their events, a very vibrant student community. And like every school in the country, it's kind of been able to elevate this with institutional support. Those group of students were clawing at the door saying, we want to go to the next level with this. We want to elevate this to a championship sport on this campus with institutional support and that type of thing. And so we kind of had it from both sides. Like every school in the country, we had that grassroots movement of students from the bottom up trying to push it, but we'd already had a kind of a proof of concept idea of the benefit of institutional support and occupation of the space and the game space. So we had a very friendly administration to say, all right, well, let's do this and be a part of this. And so in 2017, over 3 years ago now, we were able to put together a methodology for putting it on our campus, housing it in that very same games program, that EAE, where all the games programs and academia actually is, and running it out of there, and become the first school from a Power 5 conference to ratify esports as a varsity sport, and getting ready for year 4 now, and bigger and better every year, we hope.
Nice. That's great. So yeah, I think, an important question for a lot of students who are thinking about playing esports in college has to do with the kind of competitive side of the house. Maybe, yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit about what defines Utah as a competitive program, looking at what games do you offer, how many teams do you have, what competitive leagues do you play in, if any at all.
And it's a moving target. Yeah. So one of the principles of that student club, when it was growing, before there was institutional support for esports, was Crimson Gaming was about more than one game, more than one title, and grew out of this idea that there used to be several clubs on campus. There was the League of Legends Student Association and a StarCraft club and a Dota club and so on and so forth. Yeah. And there was a huge push to be a powerful unit and to be able to have a like-minded people and be able to do things on campus that they couldn't separately, to aggregate together and aggregate your resources together. And so they did this thing where they would feature different game titles. They would do a league event, and they would do a Dota event, but have big events with featured games, and so with featured publisher support with those things, but also have smaller events on the side that were little things. But the idea was to give students of all, like all games and like different genres, give everyone a reason to come to those events. And that's kind of the philosophy that they grew from, is they wanted to be a gaming community of every title, of every genre, of everything, and be one happy family. And when Utah Esports was born, we kind of adopted that same philosophy of we couldn't just be the varsity League of Legends team, or we couldn't just be the varsity Overwatch team. It was always going to be a moving target of what games were institutionally supported here. And it was always going to be that we wanted to be able to have a reason for everyone to kind of benefit from the existence of Utah Esports and have a reason to care that it exists. And so out of the gates 4 years ago, we had a varsity League of Legends team, an Overwatch team, a Hearthstone team, and a Rocket League team, with the criteria of looking at three things of one, were those titles of interest to the student community on our campus? And that was the primary and obviously the biggest concern that we had. And those were 4 very large titles and had huge student communities, and so those made sense to institutionalize as the varsity sports here. The second was, is there a collegiate infrastructure to support having a varsity team? So another way, if you had a varsity team for that game, did you have somebody to play against? Did you have a championship to win? And was that championship supported by the publisher? So some of those things are hard to do if they're not. And for the longevity, and particularly if you're investing resources into it, you want to make sure that publishers are on the same page with your support of that title. And the third, as we normalize esports as an institutionally supported program, was the propriety of the content. And so there was a huge CSGO program in our community at the University of Utah at that time. That one was a little bit harder to put the school branding behind. And it's not to say that it's inappropriate in any way, shape, or form. It's just that how many different conversations at the same time do you want to have as you normalize the support of gaming on campus? And so those three components were the criteria by which we picked varsity sports, kind of picking lots of different genres and giving students from every interest and every background of gaming a reason to care, and it's something to be interested at the University of Utah, and it's something we target. I mean, as we move forward, we're very interested in adding FGC titles and very interested in adding maybe Valorant, and as things become of interest to that student community, we want to adjust what we do and what we support to kind of support those student interests. But also, just accumulate more resources, there's more that we can do.
Right. I think is the nature of esports, just in terms of how titles wane and wax in popularity. So that makes sense. So you have to be flexible. But another thing that's really important, I think, that's kind of spins off of the competitive side, is the facility. I think that a lot of students are super interested in what kind of hardware they're going to be playing with, will have access to if they come to a given school. So do you want to kind of comment on the facility that you guys have set up and maybe some of the hardware that's there?
Sure. So, this is kind of a long story, and the esports team at the University of Utah will tell you they've moved facilities probably 4 times in the last 3 years, but they kind of have a permanent home now at this point. So, year number 1, we were allocated a space in the student field house, which was a 900 square foot practice room facility, which we added ports and electrical in, where we existed for a year. And then we've moved since then 3 times, but established a permanent training and practice facility in the games building at the University of Utah, building what is known as Building 72, which is a 1,100 square foot facility with 35 machines in it. And it is not the community space, but it is exclusive to the varsity scholarship team, where it's a door to close where they live, where they hold practices for as much as 20 hours a week, frequently where they study and hang out and kind of do those things, and separate from the community gaming space, which is right outside those doors, which is where student-driven and club events still happen. But we have the training space, which we've been pursuing for 3 years now, that is just for them, and having a desk and a computer that isn't an open space for anyone to sit down in, which belongs to that player to set up and customize the way he or she wants it to be, and kind of their home away from home to set up on. In addition to having a space where we call our performance space. So if you're not performing before a live audience and you're just doing it on stream, that's kind of where the studio where you're going to be on stream and there's cameras to show you guys playing, where it's an isolated space. And so you don't want them to play live on stream in the same space that they would practice in, because you don't want them to be able to be in there with 20 other players from different teams and different stuff. So we have the performance space. We have a dedicated space for a studio where casters and streamers live there, and a control room, which has generated about 700 hours of content now over the last 3 years.
Dang, that's awesome. So it's fully tricked out. That's very cool. um, so like a lot of programs go all out when it comes to facilities. They provide top of the line access to hardware and good stuff for their players. But what's something that is really unique about the Utah program? What's something that you're really proud of, or that you think really differentiates the program from others?
I think it continues to be that we are gaming and esports is not the defining portion of Utah's investment in games. That it is one initiative in games, that there are several. And if a student comes here and is interested in championship esports, we like to brand the University of Utah. We like to brand it Gamer U. And so whether you're interested in studying games in college, whether you're interested in making games for a career, or you're interested in participating in championship esports, we kind of think of the University of Utah as the university for you to come touch on all those things. And if you have an academic interest in the space, or just want to be around a university with that much gaming and gaming initiatives going on around you, there's no part of this industry. It's not just limited to esports and gaming. There's no part of this industry that you do not have access to, in addition to networking in this industry, by coming to the University of Utah. And we're very proud of that, and think that as schools continue to adopt esports as esports teams and as a championship sport, our academic investment in both game development and game studies will continue to set us apart.
Nice. So, related question, but the final question, speaking directly to those who are looking for a team right now, they're checking out schools, they're trying to figure out how to navigate the application process. What is one thing that you would want those students to know? It could be something about what you look for in an applicant, or something broader, whatever.
So the portion as schools continue to invest in this space that we kind of want all students to understand is this is esports at a university, so they continue to be students first. So as they come here and as their parents are looking at what other universities that they're going to look at, we want them to understand that the first and foremost concern that we are always going to have for them at the University of Utah is that they take care of that side of the house first before all other concerns. So if we have a big game and they are uncomfortable and need to go study for a midterm, that's what we want them to do. That this last year we topped out. We had a 3.35 average as a team of students composed of mostly STEM majors, 19 computer science majors of the 34 student athletes that are scholarship here. And so we want to make sure they understand that when they come here, we want them to take school seriously. We want to help support them to get whatever they need to be able to succeed here as students. And we want them to walk away with the experience with a degree. And that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that we are conceding on the competitive side of this. And we are going to win a lot of games. We're going to win a lot of championships. Yeah. And we're going to send players out of here with a degree in addition to championship rings while we do it.
That sounds pretty good. All right. Well, AJ, thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.